Hey, what's going on, everyone? So I just had a call canceled, so I got a little break in my schedule for today. And I want to jump in and answer a question that's come up multiple times today and that Ariana and I get a lot, which is how do we get everything done? And, so we have three businesses, we have two kids, and we have a lot going on. But people are constantly coming to us and saying, well, how do you guys actually get everything done? Because I see everything that you're doing and it just seems crazy. Like last week, we were at a conference all week, and they're like, well, how can you leave your business for a week? So I just want to share with you some of the quote unquote secrets of how we do that. So it starts out with our planning process. And you've probably heard, similar aspects of this before, but basically it starts with getting clear on where it is we want to go. And then we do an annual planning. We actually do ours at the middle of the year in June because it makes it easier than trying to do it like at the end of the year when you have the holidays going on. And then we do a quarterly planning. So the annual planning kind of plans out, all right, what does the next year look like? And then even beyond that, what direction are we heading? The quarterly is then saying, okay, now let's check in on how we're doing towards that annual plan and then make adjustments if we need to and really plan the next 90 days. We do a monthly check-in to basically say, all right, now we're working towards this 90-day goal. We're a third of the way through. Are we on track? What do we have to adjust? And then we also look at our financials. So we set our budgets. That then drives down to our weekly planning. And this is really what we call the heartbeat of, our business and running our lives. And this weekly planning is really all about reflecting back on the last week. And once again, we do this on Wednesday instead of on like Friday or Monday like most people do. And what we found is by doing it on Wednesday, it's the middle of the week. So usually you're not getting this meeting thrown off because, you have a long weekend and maybe you take Friday off, or you have a long weekend, you take Monday off. Putting it in the middle of the week means that we almost always can have it on the same schedule and nothing else basically trumps it. So now with this weekly meeting, what we can do is reflect on the last week. What wins did we have and what challenges did we have? We can take a look at some of our numbers and then we can plan out the upcoming week and basically get a good idea of what does our calendar look like, as well as, what are some of the key things that we need to achieve in the upcoming week. So that way we get on the same page with everything that we need to do, which then leads to our daily planning. And basically our daily planning is we're each spending a couple of minutes a day really figuring out what it is that we're going to achieve that day. And then we sync up on ultimately, okay, what is my focus? What is her focus? What do we need from each other? And then we can go and basically work independently throughout the day and make sure that we're both aligned and working on the right things. So, I'll show you a little bit of kind of the planner we use, and people forget that, or people are often surprised that we do a lot of stuff electronically, but that I actually do a lot of stuff with pen and paper as well. So this planner we have, and it's less about the planner, but let me kind of walk you through what we use here. So on the side, we've got essentially the schedule. So the schedule is I wake up at 5 most days. So it's 5 in the morning. And then it runs through about 10 at night. Now, to be honest, I go to bed usually before 10. A lot of people are surprised about that too. They're like, well, I figured you'd be up all night working. What we found is that, getting that quality sleep makes a big impact on your productivity. So the first thing we do is basically I go to my Google Calendar and I put in all the appointments that I have for that day. What this now allows me to do is get clear on what times are already booked or committed to, as well as you'll see along the side here, I've got checklists for water. And I've been terrible at actually updating this today, but what this reminds me to do is to drink water all day. Because one of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs have is that we get so into working that we forget to take care of ourselves. So by drinking water throughout the day, what we can do is make sure that we're staying hydrated. Then if we go up to the top here, I've got basically my morning routine. Now, everybody's routine can be different, but for me, it's comprised of a couple minutes of meditating. Usually I target about 10 minutes. Then it gets into ultimately learning time. So this could be listening to a podcast, this could be reading a book, or this could be going through a course that we're working on. And what I like to do with this is ultimately learn the next thing that I need to do to drive either myself or my business forward. So then when I get done learning, immediately that day, I can start implementing or using what I've learned, to then help me drive forward. If we look beyond this, we've also got working out or some sort of physical activity. We then have eating healthy, whether it's a smoothie or if I'm doing intermittent fasting, this might be till later. Then I've got vitamins and supplements I'm taking. And ultimately, at the end of that is a cold shower. And so what I've found is that by doing this morning routine every day, it really makes a big difference to get me kind of in the right mood and to put myself first so then I can show up, for the business and for my family. Then if you look at the rest of the sheet, what we have here is we have a scoreboard metric. So every day there's one metric that I'm looking to drive forward in our business. So by identifying that out, what I can make sure is that the activities that I have planned for that day will drive that forward. Then I have the daily commitments. So this is really your intention or your focus for the day. So there's a lot of stuff that you could do, but ultimately it's saying, what are the handful of things that I'm committing to doing or that I'm intentionally focusing on doing? You'll notice next to those, as well as next to any of the other tasks that we have laid out, there's a U and an I. And the U stands for urgent and the I stands for important. So what a lot of people run into is when they're trying to prioritize everything that they have going on, they don't have a simple way to do that. So what we do is whenever we put a task down, we indicate, is this an urgent task that we've got to get done ASAP? And then is it an important task? And ideally, we want to be focusing the most on important tasks that aren't urgent. So they're the most important things to be done, but we've given ourselves time to create them. Now, when you get started, what you're probably going to be doing is working on tasks that are important, but they're also urgent. And a lot of people kind of get stuck in this cycle of always having to do urgent tasks. And then sometimes they're working on urgent and important tasks, but oftentimes they're just working on things that are urgent and kind of coming up that day, rather than focusing on these are the just important tasks, and I've cleared out all the urgent things so that I'm not always kind of under the gun. If we look down below there, we've got this red section, which is things that I need from others. So there might be things that I need from Ariana or from somebody else to move some of my tasks forward. So what I do there is I indicate that so that I know when Ariana and I sync up, I can let her know what I need from her. And then I can also reach out to anybody else that I'm waiting on. So this allows me to make sure that I'm getting rid of the roadblocks that come up so that I can move my task forward. You'll then notice below that I ultimately have a list of other tasks that I want to accomplish. So above, I'm defining what I'm committing to, and that's what I'm working on getting done. But I might have some additional tasks that I want to complete as well. So by putting them there, I know that if I finish everything else, I can get to these. But if anything, I'm just going to finish what I'm committing to. And then if I don't get the other ones done, I'll reevaluate today or tomorrow and say, okay, is this something that shifts to tomorrow? Or do I move this out to maybe reevaluate at the end of the week and then figure out when I do it? And then ultimately at the bottom, I've got my evening routine. That's basically saying, all right, we're going to finish up the day. I'm going to clear out my email. I'm going to finish off this sheet and then plan out the next day so I know already before I go to bed what I'm going to be doing the next day. And then we've got some gratitude and some affirmations. So that's how I kind of end my day. But then I want to get over to this side of the sheet. And so you're going to notice the first thing up here is new tasks. One of the things that was amazing once I started adding it in was once I've kind of planned the day out, any new things that come up that demand my attention or that I think about, I started putting in this new task column. And a couple things happened from here. One, I realized how many things were coming up that I didn't plan for. And then two, you'll notice that we also have the U and the I there as well. So we have urgent and important. So if I have 10 new things come up during the day, I can quickly define, okay, which ones do I need to do today versus which ones might I do at another time, or maybe I'm not going to do them at all. Another thing you'll realize with this is that if you continuously have a whole bunch of new stuff coming up every day, that's going to be a sign that maybe you can improve your planning, or maybe you need to delegate more, or maybe you need to improve some of your systems and processes. So if that's filling up, it's going to give you a sign that that's something to look into deeper. And then ultimately, as you start having things that come up and you're putting them in there, you're going to start developing a system so that these things aren't in your head and you're trying to remember them all, but you say, okay, that's a new task. Let me write it down. I'll figure out the priority. If it's a priority for today, I'll shift my day around to achieve that. If it's not a priority for today, then I know at the end of the day, I'll be able to move that to where it is a priority. It might be moving it to the weekly list. It might be saying this can kind of sit on ice until we do our next quarterly planning session, and I'll figure out where it fits in. But that is a huge thing that a lot of people don't do, is when new things come up, ultimately what they're doing is they're trying to take care of them right away, which isn't what you want to do. You want to take care of the most important things, but then ultimately anything else that comes up, have a system in place for capturing those and then figuring out when you achieve them. So we're almost done with this sheet. If we look at it, we got new ideas. So if you're an entrepreneur, you probably have a million new ideas that come up. So what I like to do is when a new idea comes up, I make a note of it, and then I can go back through all my daily sheets and collect all my new ideas so that, let's say at our quarterly planning session, I can then go back and say, do any of those ideas warrant us taking a look at them now? Then we got a couple more. So we ultimately have any wins and challenges. So for us, one of the things we do every week is we celebrate our wins, and then we bring up and work through our challenges. So by capturing those every day, now when we get to the end of the week and we're doing our weekly review and planning session, it is now so easy to go back and say, all right, these were the wins and these were the challenges. So I'm not racking my brain trying to remember them all and then potentially forgetting some of them. Then we got lessons. So every single day, issues happen, mistakes happen, and maybe you're even talking to someone else or you're reading something and you learn something new. So I like to indicate those lessons so that I'm understanding and I'm basically committing down. These are the things that I learned that maybe I can share with Ariana. This might also be content. So I might turn this into a blog post, a Facebook post, a podcast, because it's something that I learned that I can then share with other people. And then finally, we got an open section for notes. So what I do there is anything that doesn't fit into any of the other categories will go into the notes. And now if you're still watching, you're probably saying, Tom, that sounds complicated and it sounds like there's a lot going on. And the truth is, this system has basically taken Ariana and I years to develop. But what we did was basically said, all right, every single week we're going to review and then plan, and we're always making adjustments to our process for what works for us. So the couple kind of takeaways that I would have for you guys from here is, number one, just get intentional with what you're doing. So if you're clear on where it is you want to go and you're setting your goals, whether they're annually, whether they're 90 days, whether they're every month, at least then that's going to guide what actions you take. Get very clear on what it is that you need to get done today, what's urgent and important, and what other things might be delayed that you're not working on right away. And then finally, make sure that you have a process for checking in to say, am I on track? Am I going in the right direction? And then what things do I have to improve on to either get back on the right direction or to ultimately say, okay, I'm off track, but let me figure out what is getting in my way or what I need to put a system in place for or what I need to delegate to ultimately be on track. And finally, just realize that you're always going to have more to do than you can get done. So this is going to be an ongoing process, which is why we do these meetings all the time to say, okay, what's the next thing that we need to put a process in place for? What's the next thing that I need to delegate and get off of my plate? So by putting that weekly process in place, what you're ultimately doing is continuously improving how you operate and ultimately helping you be more productive. So if you guys have any questions, leave a comment down below and let me know. Otherwise, what I'll do, I'm also going to post up a couple of podcasts where we discussed a little bit of our process and how we work with entrepreneurs to help them implement this. So you guys can check that out and go really deeper into some of the topics that we talked about today.